and stuff. I always have to wait until the time happens, but
yeah, me too, actually.
I just like all of a sudden got like 30 notifications.
really.
Oh, I have an ad playing.
Oh no, sorry.
Discover new.
Really?
I have an ad playing. Oh, good Lord. Okay.
Going.
Yeah, gotta get that AdSense. You know what though? I just got my first check from YouTube today.
Really?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, I mean, it was real small, but I was like, ah.
Oh, that's so cool. It's like
so cool. Like Becca and I are so far away from ever being able to even like use ads. We're just like, it's so cool. We don't even know what that is.
Yeah,
okay, yay, we're live. I see. Tay Buggy says hello. Hello. Katie, I'm so excited about this topic. Me too, Katie. Me too. I'm ready to pick Becca's brain.
Because I'm the over paranoid, like.
Which is good because Jessica and I clearly are like, we share a lot.
Is it really paranoid though? Because like, I mean, it's happened. Like, it's not like you're afraid of something that's never happened before. Like, you have reason to have fear.
Honestly, I probably, if I hadn't had anything stolen from me, I probably would be a lot more relaxed about it. I think it's just the fact that it's happened to me more than once. It's happened to, I think, like 3 or 4 times. So at that point, it's just like, what am I doing wrong? Like, and sometimes even after it's protected, it's still been stolen. So, you know, sometimes you can do only so much.
Yeah.
You know, but it is nice to have some safety precautions in there.
Yes. Well, and that's really what I want to like dive into, but we'll see if anyone else has, if anyone has any specific questions for, I'm going to say for Becca, but if you have some for Jessica and me too, we'll try to answer what we can.
And they can be topic related or not, because Lord knows we'll be off topic for half an hour talking about everything else.
I know.
Definitely.
We're very relaxed.
Yes, nice and chill while people stealing our ideas.
But we should probably, since we have our wonderful special guest host, Becca, let Becca introduce herself and tell people where they can find her.
Great call.
Well, I feel like it's always like the same group of people. So I feel like, you know, but yeah, my name is Becca C. Smith, and I have an AuthorTube channel too. So, and it's just under Becca C. Smith. So yeah.
I do have her links in the description down below. If somehow you found this channel and haven't seen me talk about Becca before, or Jessica's links are down below too. So
I feel like if someone has heard of one of us, they have heard at least heard of the other two at this point.
Yeah,
but,
I think so.
It's fine. A Bookish Obsession says, Kate, random question. Have you seen my Insta story lately? Because this title has happened to me recently. So now I want to know a Bookish Obsession. What happened to you?
I want to ask that too. I haven't seen your Insta story lately. So please do let all of us know, because I feel like this is going to be one of those things where we all share and hopefully we can all learn something from it. Sarah, I'm paranoid about this, but luckily it hasn't happened to me that I know of. I only have one poem published though, so not likely.
Well, you know, this can happen with not just writing too. I mean, because I you know, I draw as well, not very good, but I do have like stuff on Redbubble, which is, you know, for like artists and stuff. And I have found my designs on Amazon from another seller selling them on t-shirts or like whatever. And that happens a lot. My friend Sarah Cave, who's actually an amazing artist, she has to do cease and desist emails like on the daily. She actually had to hire somebody because people steal her designs all the time. And this is like, these are like companies in China, you know, so it's not like it's like, you know, so they're mass producing them. She, you know, she doesn't make any money off of it. And it's like, I think I did a video back farther where I don't know if you guys ever saw on your Instagram or anything like that, where it's like she did a combination of Stranger Things, like the Gorgon with the Adidas logo, and it was really popular. Kind of went viral, and that was her design that she did, and someone made a lot of money off of it.
You know, this is semi-related, though not in the same way that I think you could, like, she monetizes or could potentially monetize her, things like that. But I know even on Twitter, like, someone will have a popular, like, something they tweet, and then someone else takes that, but, like, strips it of its stuff, and then, like, big, you know, whatever account, and then they tweet it as if they came up with it, and it just crazy. And you're like, well, what about that person who actually had the thought? And so
and usually it's the person that doesn't have as big of a following and that is of the smaller channel that won't get the credit because they don't have the reach to make it popular. So that happens a lot. It's on a small scale, but so I mean, you can always go the legal route like she does, which is the cease and desist kind of thing. But it's easier with artwork, I guess, because it's for some reason it is much easier to protect art than it is like writing, because writing is so subjective. Like let's say, like, you know, I have, you know, my book Riser, right? It's about a teenage girl that essentially is a necromancer, you know, and I do my own spin on it, of course. But there's nothing stopping from somebody writing a book, screenplay, whatever, about a teenage girl who is a necromancer.
Right.
I mean, I can't protect that because I didn't make up necromancy. You know what I mean? So sometimes there's literally nothing you can do if someone decides, you know, even if they've got inspired by, you know, your story, like maybe if you're talking about it on YouTube, and they hear like tidbits and they go, oh, and it gets their wheels going, and they don't take the exact idea, but they do take the concept of your idea and turn it into their own. There is literally nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
Well, and art is easier to protect because it's an exact copy. Like, it's the same picture. You can be like, okay, well, this date, here's mine, and they didn't come up with theirs until this date, so obviously theirs is a copy of mine rather than the other way around. Whereas an idea is hard to say that, you know, even if you had come up with necromancy, there's not really a way to copyright it, so there's not really a way for you to say this is mine. And you can't copyright a string of words. You can't copyright like certain sayings.
Yeah.
But it has to be like the work as a whole. I think it has to be, I'm not 100% sure of the number, but I'm pretty sure it has to be like a certain number of words in a row that are exactly the same for it to be considered stolen.
Yeah, in terms of like writing, but you can register. I would register with the Writers Guild as opposed to copywriting.
Yes.
If you are trying to if you're trying to sort of protect a concept. So like some people, if you come up with like, you know, because there's like these ideas like high concept, you know, that word gets thrown around a lot, especially in like the film industry. You know, like a high concept idea is like something that's just so sort of unique that like people, you know, I'm trying to think of an example of like a movie that's like really high concept. But of course I can't. But anyway, you can like write that idea down. Like if you think you've got like, okay, this is like, I don't think anyone's ever thought of this. I Googled the crap out of it. No one's ever done anything like this. Then it is smart to register the idea before you start telling people about it or pitching it or writing it. Just before you even start writing anything, just so that you have that on record. I mean, I guess the bottom line for protecting yourself is creating a written record, so that you have something to pull from if it ever came to having to prove you came up with the idea first.
Yeah. Well, and Becca, I know you and I talked about this a little bit, and you can tell me to stop if this isn't one you want to share, but I know you did that with something where you went to protect it, but then it kind of, the not like statute of limitations, but like it had expired. So
that was,
if you do that.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I always register my in the past to the Writers Guild, but there is an expiration date. I think it's 7 years, and you can renew it. And I didn't. I just didn't renew it. And then and sometimes people know that and kind of go on the assumption that you're going to do that, and that is kind of what happened to me. It was about 10, 11 years. So it had already been expired for, 4 or 5 years. And so they just went ahead and made the movie. And there was really nothing I could do to fight it at that point.
Don't forget.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Just keep it going. I mean, like the nice thing about the copyright art thing is it's forever. Whereas the Writers Guilds, it's only for 7 years. So
find one of those things where you can send your future self an email, like where they store it and it sends it to you like at a certain date and be like, remember, renew your copy or renew your whatever on this date.
I wish I would have done that. Now, to be fair, this was because I am old, so this was before email.
Wait a minute, did you just say it was before email?
Yeah, pretty much. No one had an email in this. This was in the 90s.
Oh my
God. It was, I know, that's what I'm saying. It was in the 90s. And so there were like now the Writers Guild will email you and say, hey, your registration's coming up. Would you like to renew? And then, so nowadays it's much easier to keep track of when it expires, for sure. But back then it was like, I'm not even kidding. You'd have to go in person in the office because there's nothing digital. So you can't upload anything. There's no internet really yet. I had to go with my actual script in hand to the office. They take the script, they seal it in front of you, and then they handwrite a certificate that gives you the receipt. So,
oh Lord,
well, that's
how you do it.
I'm not even part of any kind of Writers Guild, which I should change that.
Well, the thing about the Writers Guild is it is unfortunately Writers Guild is kind of really just for really based in screenwriting and TV. And so it is very difficult to join because, but you can register. I mean, they don't care about that. You don't have to be a member to register your script or anything. Yeah. You just have to pay them $20. But yeah, it's to give you an example, the only ways you can become a member of the Writers Guild is you either have to sell a screenplay to a guild signatory company, which means like one of the bigger like Paramount or Universal or whatever, which is obviously a difficult task. And then or if it's in TV, I think it's like you have to have 2 scripts like actually produced on a television show in order to get the points.
Wow.
So it's really hard. Like it's actually really hard to become a member. So I'm not a member. I have points, but I don't have enough points.
Oh, okay. Well, I know I'm really going to have to look into this more, but I think it was like 3 weeks ago or a month ago, the Romance Writers of America or something were having a contest, and someone basically had submitted this book that they wrote, but what they'd done, it came out that they'd basically just copied nearly word for word, changing little things here and there, like multiple different people's stuff. And then there was this whole thing about some of the people who'd submitted were also using ghostwriters. Like it was a whole mess. And like RWA is, I don't know that's quite the same thing as like a guild, but it is a kind of one.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
so
that's rough.
I'm going to look up more of it. I think it'd just be interesting to find out some. But
they were talking, especially the ghostwriter part, they were talking about like it was hard to figure out what belonged to who and who had the right to complain about it because there was so much that was ghostwritten and everything. So
yeah, that's
crazy.
just insane.
Yeah. I mean, even if you like look on the internet, there's so many lawsuits and like of people claiming this, or like my boyfriend stole this, my girlfriend stole this, you know, whatever. And yeah, so it honestly, paper trail is the key. You just need to create a paper trail for yourself before you express your ideas. And that goes for like beta reading, editors, cover designers, you know, just whether it's in an email or, I mean, and sometimes it can just be an email, just so you have an email trail. But a lot of people choose to actually make contracts with like, you know, what's that called? Like non-disclosure kind of clauses, like don't talk about this with your friends, don't talk about this with other, you know, this is, you know, you're beta reading this, but I don't want anyone to know.
Yeah.
But an email is usually enough.
Yeah, to prove. Yeah. Well, I think that's part of the reason why, Becca, you and I were talking about this at our last write-in, but why I get so concerned. So I don't mind sharing concepts and like little things here and there, which is what it feels like, even though I realize when I watch other people's channels that I share a lot more than others do. But the distinction there when I'm actually sending someone who I don't completely know an entire manuscript feels much different to me than just sharing an idea. Because I feel like, especially at the rate at which I write, oftentimes I feel like the ideas, like even the big concepts, are kind of like a dime a dozen sort of thing. So that one doesn't feel as invasive to me as sending off a whole, you know, 80,000 word book to them and be like, don't share it, you know.
Don't take any of it. I know. And the thing is though, I mean, I think that's probably what some people, you know, get worried about with like reaching out to like AuthorTube to be their beta readers and things like that, because even though, you know, it's this community and we feel like we know each other, it's like, you know, do we know each other? You know, it's like, you know.
Yeah.
So
well, I think that Buggy made a good point about how like they say there are no unique ideas anymore, because basically it's just like we all have the same ideas and it's how you throw it together. So when you do have something that is, even sometimes like you'll think you have like the most brilliant idea ever, and then you go to the movie theater and you watch a movie that's based off of a book by a popular author, and then you see it in the movie because you've never read the book and you're like, I thought I was the one that came up with it. That may or may not have happened to me when I went to go see Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Maybe. I'm not saying if it did or it didn't, but I'm just saying that maybe it did.
That's always the worst. Is like when you're so excited about an idea and then you sometimes it's not even watching the movie. Sometimes it's like you read a blurb of like something that's about to be made or a TV show that's coming out or like any of the stuff, and you're like, oh crap.
They beat me to the punch. No, I thought this was such a good idea. And now I'm just going to be like, oh, you're copying them.
Yeah.
Well, that's what...
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just, some of the comments, I think a Bookish Obsession was saying how a similar thing happened to her on AuthorTube, but that beating someone else to the punch is what I was thinking of. Kind of looped in with that, so that even if you have an original idea for a video, you know, what's the phrase people have been using when a bunch of people were all kind of consuming the same media, so it's inevitable that some of us all have the same idea at the same time. And so that's what I think about when I see other people who make videos, and I'm like, oh, I was just thinking of doing this or whatever. So you can't really, you know, and it's again similar to the books. We all have our own spin that we put on things. So, I mean, think of all the writing vlogs we have out there.
I know. Yeah, I guess the hardest part for me was and this is the thing, is it's never happened in terms of like, you know, sharing like with betas or anything like that. Like that's never like happened to me. Like I you know, I don't know how likely that is, that, because usually when you're asking for betas, they're just excited to read it. Like I don't think their intent is to be like, I'm going to read this and steal it, you know. I don't think that that's like, you know, something that probably happens that often. It's just, but it is good to have a paper trail and like, and to do those kind of things. The only times that I've had things stolen from me is a personal relationship with, and again, it's only happened to me in the film world. It has never happened to me in the book world. So I've had two screenplays stolen, and then one teleplay TV show stolen. And because there was no paper trail, there was no way to prove it. The only thing I could prove was that we had a relationship in the sense of, like, you know, we worked together and, you know, but I can't prove what we talked about. You know what I mean? I can't, unless I would have recorded every conversation we ever had. There's just no legal action. At least I was advised there's no legal action that I could personally take. And I do think it happens more in the movie and TV industry, because especially the TV industry, because when you think about the way TV works, it's, you know, although it's changed drastically in the last 10 years, because, you know, there are like 10 episode seasons or 8 episode seasons, you know, where it used to be 22 episodes a season. And it's like they and certain shows like need ideas, and they sometimes can't come up with ideas. And so they go out to, like, I know when I worked on the TV show, it was literally my job as an assistant to search out social media avenues and things like that to try and generate ideas. You know what I mean? So it's like there are people's jobs to essentially go out and see, not necessarily like steal, but like to get inspired or come up with like things that they read and say, well, this might work for the show. This might work for the show, you know?
Especially to find out what's popular in, like, what people are wanting to see.
Absolutely. Especially in like crime shows, you know, because it's like, you know, there's only, especially shows that run for a really long time, and, you know, there's only so many murders they can come up with, you know, so they usually have you go research, you know, news articles. So it's not even like personal things. It's just like, you know, stuff that you find, like, oh, this happened in blah, blah, blah. And I found out that this, you know, they killed so-and-so and blah, you know, so it's like an actual kind of based on something real. But yeah, it literally is some people's jobs to do that. So that's why I get a little nervous on YouTube, but, you know, but again, I'm not really doing TV movies now, so I don't worry about it as much.
And I wonder if and someone said it in the chat, but I don't remember who it was, because the chat is moving so quickly that I have no idea. Someone said, you know, that the video itself could be the proof. So like us talking about our ideas, because we posted on a specific date, like that idea is there, and it's kind of like in forever on the internet that, you know, I had this idea on this date. But again, you can't copyright or you know, the idea itself. It would have to be parts of the actual work. And I think, and Alexa is in the chat as well, and she's talking about every time I say it, my Alexa just turned on. She's like, what do you want? But she's saying, you know, basically a lot of times you know, you can write something very similar to someone else, but it doesn't mean that it's totally the same, or that people will get the same thing from it. And that's true as well. Just because you have the same idea as someone else, I'm not like the exact same idea, but even if you have a similar idea, it doesn't mean that you'll come up with the same story. And I think, Kate, you and Brooke prove that, like when you guys do your drinking videos, because you'll have like a lot of the same prompts, and you come up with completely different stories. So that to me is like just proof of that, is that, you know, you give two people the same prompt, the story is not going to be the same. You give two people the same idea, the story will not be the same. It will have some similarities because it started out at the same place, but it won't be exactly the same. And it just, and at that point, it just comes down to whoever gets lucky, because I feel like a lot of publishing is luck. And it's, I mean, it is skill. You need to know what you're doing. You need to be good at what you do, but there's also a large portion of it that is just luck. So.
Well, and that's what I'm reading the chat, and I see Alexa says basically that same thing, where she and another famous author had written an almost identical book, but of course they got published. They were already on the track for publication, and and it reminded me of oh my gosh, Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. What's her? She wrote a book about writing and about like being a creative person and stuff like that. And she said that her and a friend who they hadn't like met or talked about stories, and it was almost like one story idea jumped from her friend to her, and she
Oh,
ended
wow.
up writing this book. And when they finally got talking about it, she's like, I have notes on this. I was researching this. I was doing all this. So it's an interesting kind of, it is sometimes just beating to the punch.
It is. I mean, if you think about like the there was a whole thing in the 90s where some on purpose and some just happened naturally, but like Disney seemed to be the culprit in most of the cases. So there is a debate whether or not they did it on purpose, but like there was like Deep Impact in Armageddon, which is exactly the same concept of a asteroid hitting the Earth. And then there was like Tombstone and Wyatt Earp, and it was like the exact same story of Tombstone. And technically, there, if you read the details, like with Tombstone and Wyatt Earp, I mean, they came up with the ideas to do the movie at the same time, but Disney wanted to do Tombstone more, so they actually like they rented out all the costumes of that time period. So Wyatt Earp had to like order their costumes from Europe. I mean, so they were playing dirty. But it's like, so you know, when they find out that the other person is like doing a movie similar, they will try everything to squash it. Like there was supposed to be 2 Three Musketeers movies that came out. The one with, remember, with Charlie Sheen and like Chris O'Donnell, like way back in the day.
Yeah,
there was supposed to be one with Johnny Depp and like I think Robert Downey Jr. And which was weird is Oliver Platt, who was in that Three Musketeers, was supposed to be in either, and he was supposed to play, I think, Porthos, like the same character he played. They both wanted him, but they also did underhanded moves to make sure that they were the only one that did the Three Musketeers, so the other one got squashed. So, you know, yeah, it's like sometimes it can become a competition when you do find out that other people are going to make a similar concept theme.
Yeah, someone talked about the movie thing in the chat as well, like with A Bug's Life and Ants. And I've seen like you can research, like they go through like lists of how like every year there is at least like one group of movies that are exactly the same from 2 different companies, which is
that's funny that you bring up like A Bug's Life and Ants and stuff like that, because I actually, one of my rejections, I think I talked about this before, was that I had written a book about a ladybug in like this whole, like, you know, the world of the ladybug and whatever. And so I had written that was back when you could write letters to studios. I had written a query letter to Pixar. And I actually got a personal letter back from the president at the time of Pixar saying, we love this idea, but we need you to know that we are currently working, like they'd already been like working on it for like a year, because it takes forever to make an animated feature. They're like, like, it's almost like they were like, please don't sue us, because it's like, we've been working on this for a year. We totally get that you have something about a ladybug as well, but you know. So it's funny. It's like, and it was very sweet. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, I didn't get offended or anything. It's like, so, you know, because I probably would have if I had sent the letter and they hadn't responded back to me, and then I saw A Bug's Life, I would have been like, what a minute!
You horrible people. What are you doing?
What the hell? So yeah. So, you know, even when, again, like you said, Ant, you know, the Ant one too, they were both being made at the same time. Yeah. So, and, you know, and then some chick off the street writes a query letter about another ladybug. They're all like, we do not want lawsuits.
Well, and I think a lot of things can be, it's because we all see the same media, we all see the same news, we all, I mean, we're all immersed in like the same setting and the same situation. So us coming up with the same kind of idea is, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense that we would have the same ideas and the same things. And
oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's not like so far-fetched to think that someone would come up with the same idea as you. Yeah, you just have to do it way cooler than we do.
Yeah. I mean, the only time it gets dangerous is like when it's just flat out stolen. Like I know I had mentioned this before, but like when I had written that teleplay for my cousin who was an editor on this TV show. I guess I could probably tell you. I mean, it's so old now, it doesn't matter. It was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Do you guys remember that TV show?
I loved that TV show.
Okay, well,
I'm old like you, Becca. I remember that one.
No. Well, I had written an episode because my cousin was like, "You should write an episode. You know, I can give it to the producers." I was like, "Okay." So I wrote an episode about the younger brother, and I had written an episode about how he was in the science fair and his older, and I kind of made it between the relationship between the younger brother and the older sister. And so I sort of did the whole episode, and then I gave it to my cousin. I did not copyright or I did not register it with the guild. I didn't do anything because I was just like, oh, it's my cousin. And I just gave it to him. And the producers loved it. They were like, oh my God, no, we actually love the script. The problem is the actor that played the young boy was just a terror. He was horrible. And they didn't want to give him they were trying to write him out. So they couldn't give him a whole show where he would star in. So I was like, okay, I get it. No problem. Let's move on. It really didn't take me that long to write. So I was just like, meh. And then like, what was it, 5-6 years later or something like that, I was working for a casting agent and she was all like, you know, she was working on Even Stevens. I don't know if you remember that show with Shia LaBeouf or whatever. Okay. Yep. So she was working on Even Stevens and she's like, you should write an episode. And I was like, all right, I'll write an episode.
Why not?
And then she's like, I'll take it to the right people, blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking, you know, maybe I should just recycle the one I wrote because it was about a younger brother and an older sister. It's the same dynamic. I can just change the names a bit and figure it out. I don't really have to rewrite it. So she gave me some scripts to read to sort of get an idea for the characters and how they write the scripts and stuff like that. And so I take one home and one's called The Science Fair. And I was all like, oh, shoot, they already did a science fair episode, but I'll read it. It was probably maybe 3 pages were different, but everything was my script, like word for word. They literally just swapped out the names. And it was the same, I guess one of the same producer ladies that worked for both shows. And I was just like, oh.
So it was an episode that they actually made?
They made it. It was old. When I read it,
gosh.
It was like a year ago. It had already aired. I didn't watch the show, so I had no idea.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was just like.
Aren't you glad you found out that way instead of like sitting there watching TV and being like, I know what's coming next? And like just like knowing it word for word as it was happening on the screen. I would probably die. I would probably just like, explode.
Well, I gotta say, reading my own script as I was about to write a script was surreal. And like, I mean, I guess it's a compliment because, you know, now that I've worked in TV and stuff like that, I do know how much there are notes calls and how much they change stuff and how much, like, by the time you write that first script, it's so different from the end of the script that, you know, it was a kind of a compliment in a way because I was all like, they didn't change much. You know, I compared it to my old script and I was all like, I guess I should like take it as a compliment. But there's like no legal action I could take. And what would I really do? I mean, it's not like each episode makes a ton of money. You know, I mean, what do you?
Yeah.
There was no paper.
I'm sure that there is, I mean, I'm sure you didn't like sign anything, but I'm sure they have some kind of a protocol where like most people, they say, you know, if you hand us in a script and we choose not to use it for the show, like we have the authority to use it for a different show or probably, most people, like you gave yours to a cousin and that's different, but I'm sure like professionally, they probably have some kind of a.
Yeah, it's not even supposed to happen. Like you are not even supposed to be able to hand anyone from a show a script. It's supposed to go through an agent. I mean, there should be no like, and that's the reason why I think they could get away with it because it was through my cousin and it was so like on a hard drive. Like I didn't even have a copy, like, you know, so it was like one of those things that it was an easy fix. But on a TV show, now that I've like worked on them since, no, it could. I mean, it is like a 0.11% chance that can really happen. So it is crazy that it actually happened to me because it is so difficult. You can't just randomly send a TV show a script because they have staff writers, you know, and they're the ones that write the scripts and they do the outlines before they even write a script and it has to get approved by all the studios. So honestly, I have no idea how that script got through. Like, it shouldn't have. Like, it definitely shouldn't have. The only way I'm thinking is that maybe they just said it was their their script, or they thought of the idea, or they wrote it. Like maybe it was the actual producer. That's the only thing I can think of that's actually part of the staff and the writing staff. Like, so they just took them on as their own, and then it was all like, oh, I've got an idea for a science fair episode. Oh, okay, great. And then they'd go through the whole process. Here's the script, blah, blah, blah. So that's the only way I can see that happening. But yeah, you're right. No, it's like there are gatekeepers in the TV world, and they do not let anybody in unless you're part of the family, staff, agent. Everything is protected. So
it's just like you just have to live with it at that point. And
yeah, exactly.
I think Kate and I both are people who, because we haven't had anything drastic like that happen to us, we both give too much information when we are talking about our stories. And it's not just like in an individual video, it's probably like over time. Like you're like, oh, I can say this one thing. Like I have been talking about the same book for the last 2 years. I'm sure if you took everything that I have said over the last 2 years, granted the book has changed drastically, you could probably just write it yourself and it'd be just as close as what it would be if I wrote it, because I've pretty much said it all at this point.
Yeah. I think about that the most during like when I do the daily NaNoWriMo vlog. God. And I'm like, I'm telling you exactly what I'm doing that day and like along the way. So, I mean, that's a lot of information sometimes. But
yeah,
again, I'm not like actually sharing the writing. So in some ways I feel like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think like in terms of writing, yes, I don't think anyone, because they haven't read it, so they can't steal your style, they can't steal the way you write it. They, you know, and I mean, I don't see a lot of people on, I can't imagine, I mean, I hope, maybe I'm just being naive, but I don't feel like a lot of author tubers are on to steal ideas. Like, I just don't see that. Like, I feel like people are just excited to share their stories and to listen to other people's stories and to just like really like sort of just like get excited, you know, so that they can stay motivated and write their own books, you know? So I don't really see a problem with sharing it, because I share some of my story ideas.
Yeah.
On AuthorTube too. I don't really see, I don't share like a lot, but you know, but I do keep the concepts to myself.
I feel like my most original thing that I have going for Warriors is that I wrote it, like I started writing it when I was like 19, and it had all of the tropes, like all of the bad tropes, not even the good ones, like all of the bad tropes. So when I started doing rewrites like 7 years later, I was like, what I want to do with this is I want to take all of the tropes, leave them there, but turn them on their head and make the outcome of the trope unexpected.
Okay.
So that's like my most original thought with the whole thing, because like everything else is just basically, you know, things that other people have done before. There's not really any, I mean, it's all ideas, nothing super original. It's just my spin on what we're doing. But I feel like if someone else chose to do that, if someone else was like, I'm going to write a book with all of the horrible tropes and make them cool, like I would want to see how they do it. Like I would be, I mean, I would be okay with that, because I want to see how they would do it. Like I know how I plan to do it.
Yeah,
I want to see how someone else would do it.
Yeah, I definitely, I think I like, if I had an idea like that too, it'd be fun to see like how someone else's spin on, like I was saying at the beginning, like, you know, my book's about a teenage necromancer, you know, and I have my spin on it, but I would totally read a book that was about a teenage necromancer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'd be like curious to see like what their spin on that kind of idea is, you know, because I think it's the world, the, you know, the other characters, the other kind of like twists and turns that make it original. Because when you're, especially when you're dealing with sci-fi fantasy, some of the things, like you said, like the tropes or even like things like that, it's like, you know, it's I don't know. So it's like, for me, it's all like, I wouldn't get offended or upset if I suddenly saw a book that was about a teenage necromancer. I mean, I might in a way, like if theirs became like ginormous, I'd be like,
what did they do that I didn't do?
Right. It's like, dang it. But
that's all.
But yeah, it is a lot of luck. I mean, that's true in the film and TV industry too, and in the book industry. Success is a lot of luck. It's a lot of marketing too. It's a lot of like, and a lot of times when you have money behind you, that sort of takes away the luck, because you can just basically pay to get your, your message out, your advertising, your stuff like that. And so that's why a lot of people go the traditional route. But a lot of times in the traditional route, they don't get that kind of money behind them because they're not a name yet. So, I mean, there's always ups and downs to both.
You can pre-order like 20,000 copies of your book and hit #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list. I mean, you can do anything with money.
But I think, didn't Tom Clancy, one of the big, was it Grisham or Clancy? One of them did that. He was like a lawyer beforehand. Whoever wrote like The Client or Pelican Brief, who was that?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it's like Grisham or Clancy. I think it's Grisham. And I think what he did is he was a lawyer. He made a lot of good money as a lawyer. And he went, this was back before like internet, again, back before the internet. And so
before the land of time.
He would get on the New York Times bestseller list from New York bookstores. So he went and had hired a bunch of people because he had money. And he was like already a millionaire before he became a billionaire. And so he went around and hired a bunch of people to buy out every single one of his books when it was released. It was a small release. And so they went to every single New York bookstore and just bought every book that was out. And it immediately sent him to the New York Times bestseller list. And just by being like #1 on the New York bestseller list, boom, his career just flew, and he's been on the bestseller list ever since. So he had a lot of money, and it was actually a really clever idea. I mean, go out and buy it. You can't really do that now because honestly, Amazon is sort of the #1 bookseller. So it's like, and they know you can't like buy 1 million copies of your book because it'd be like, it's all one account. We know it's you.
Well, Amazon sale
for that recently. I mean, within the past 5-10 years recently, but
it was oh gosh, the Handbook of Mortals, a guidebook to mortals.
Oh look, okay, I see a bookish obsession is saying that the author of the Handbook for Mortals bought her way on the New York Times bestseller list.
Yes, and that's why I said that. She also stole the artwork for the cover. It was someone from, I think it was a DeviantArt account. They changed like 2 colors or something. Like there's a whole thing about it. If you guys want to know more, you can go and
Googling it, so I'll about it later.
Type in the Handbook for Mortals on YouTube. You'll get all the information. And
that's right.
Yeah, and Alexa's saying that the list is rigged. And I can't remember. I think it was Susan Dennard that was talking about it, which I get all of the information from Suze because that's how I live my life. She was talking about in the Discord, like books that count toward the bestsellers list and books that don't. So like basically the only thing that counts is actual physical book sales, and it has to be from like an independent bookstore or like a Barnes and Noble, like a big chain. Like Amazon sales don't count, ebook sales don't count. Anything like if your book is put out on shelves before release day, it doesn't count. Which actually happens a lot to smaller authors. Susan was finding her books, like people were finding her newest release, Blood Witch, which came out in March. People were finding them on the shelf a month before release.
Whoa.
There was a book, I can't think of who, I don't know if it was one of the Christina Lauren books, I think. Or maybe it was Kiss Quotient. It was something contemporary. And it's something that like came out in February. And there were people in Canada that were finding it like in December on bookshelves. Like stuff that like if you're not as popular, and books like if it's a big day where there's a lot of the releases that day, the booksellers will put them out early, and then all of those don't count toward your sales. So it's like what was the other thing she said that doesn't count? Buying from like Book Depository doesn't count because it's in the UK, so obviously it wouldn't count for, or not in the UK, I think it's Australian. It's somewhere over on the other side of the ocean. So it's like it's really hard to tell who's actually selling a lot of books, because there are so many things that don't count, and there are very few things that do count, and then you don't know, and it's a really bad way to judge.
Yeah.
It's like, you can say you're on Amazon, you're an Amazon bestseller. Like, that's one thing that you'll find with self-published authors. Occasionally, not always, because there are self-published authors that have their stuff together. But like, you can say you are an Amazon bestseller, like on a top 10 list or whatever, but it can be like the most micro subcategory where there's like 10 people in the category. So of course you're in the top 10, but you can promote that you're a top 10, you're in a top 10 list on Amazon bestseller.
Well,
so it's
true.
like, it is what it is. Like, either your book's gonna sell or it's not, and you have to put what you can into it and do your best, and it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that if you go on like listing sites, like for me with Riser, like I went on it's a listing site called BookBub, and they're kind of like now they seem a little harder to get onto, but like now when I do it, it's like I maybe get listed like once a year, as opposed to where I could actually get listed, in general. But literally just from BookBub listing sites, that's how you can get into the for real Amazon bestseller list. Like when I did Riser the first time, I got to number 2 on the entire Amazon store, not a subcategory, but the whole entire ebook section. And that's just because of BookBub, because they have such a huge reach.
Yeah.
And like every single one of my books that I got on BookBub got into the top 10 of like the whole store. So it's like, but I've never really gotten into the top 10 or even the top, or the top like 100 of the whole store without doing some kind of advertising or listing site. I feel like that's the hardest part about that. I think people don't take into consideration. Well, they take into consideration, but when you need some kind of budget when you're self-published or indie published, because you can't literally just upload it and hope people will find it.
Yeah.
And even social media doesn't do much, because a lot of people don't want to. You have to think about how you get books. Like, it's usually a recommendation from someone you trust, where they're like, oh my God, you have to read this book. You will love it so much, and you're like, oh, okay. And you get the book. That's how most people find their books. So tweeting about it or just like Instagramming about it, yeah, I'm sure you can make a couple sales that way, but it's never going to give you that wide reach. You have to advertise. You have to market to people that aren't your friends or that know you, because a lot of times people don't want to read your stuff because they're afraid they won't like it. And then it's like, what do they say? And then they don't want to write a bad review. And then it's like, so there's always that potential of awkwardness that you just can't rely on people to support you.
Yeah.
I mean, they will, but that's like a small circle. So advertising is really, so you have to have some kind of, it doesn't have to be huge, but you definitely need to have some kind of budget in order to get your stuff out there. Otherwise, I would never have sold as many books as I have without it. I wouldn't. I mean, it's just a fact.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I know Susan Dennard's talked a lot about, even if you're traditionally published, you're having to spend more and more money if you're not like the main listing at the time in your publishing house kind of thing. And I know like the BookTube hype train is what I was thinking of when you were talking about it, but like how often just hearing about a book so much on BookTube can cause you to buy it. And
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why the people that have larger BookTube channels get sent books for free.
Yeah.
It's that thing that I talk about with celebrities. Like, obviously it's not like the big thing with booktubers, but like, you think about celebrities and you think about these people that they like post themselves with, like, I don't know, some Nike handbag, because Nike makes handbags now. according to me. And like, it's something that costs like $200,000 that only a famous person could afford without going into debt, but you give it to them for free, so the person who has to go into debt will buy it.
Yeah.
Like, it is the weirdest thing to me. Like, they give out gift baskets or gift bags at things where there's like $2 million worth of product in it, and it's like the only person that can afford everything in that bag is the person you just gave it to for free.
For free. Oh, 100%.
No one else can afford that.
Yeah, I remember, when I worked, I don't know, I've told you guys before, but I worked on a show, Ghost Whisperer. The only reason why I bring it up is Jennifer Love Hewitt used to get so much free shit. I mean, it was just like, because they'd want her to wear it to a premiere, or they'd want to have, like, it'd be in necklaces and bags and like everything. And this girl could afford all of this stuff easily, obviously. But yeah, it's literally just for the advertising.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and that's like, I think it was Instagram that has done it where they, if it is an ad, they have to hashtag that it's an ad. Like, you have to tell that it's an ad. And YouTube, if you are doing a paid promotion on YouTube, which, if you guys don't know this, if there are any of you out there who are booktubers, author tubers, and you are getting something where it's a paid promotion, you have to, within so many seconds of the video starting, you have to state, I'm doing this video in partnership with this person. It's a paid promotion. This is what I'm promotioning. Like, there, you have to say it like every so many minutes. You have to like actually write it on the screen. You have to say it out loud within, like, I think the first like 10 seconds of the video. Like, the social media sites are making it so that you have to like say, this is an ad, or this was given to me for free, or this, they're not letting you hide behind it anymore, because a lot of people were hiding behind it and getting the information incorrectly.
Well, and then that whole Fire Festival happened, which essentially was that exactly. And so now it's like, oh my God, no one trusts anything anymore, because they thought all these celebrities were going to go and it was going to be this great thing. And it's like, no, they were just being paid to go like, oh yeah, the festival is going to be amazing and whatever. But yeah, I mean, but then at the same time, sure, I would love to have some celebrity tell everybody that my book is fantastic.
At the same time, it would be great if I could find a celebrity to be like, my book, this person's book was amazing and you all should buy it and read it.
Read it. It's so good. Yeah. I mean, so part of you, I mean, as someone who's trying, especially, well, actually, you're right. Traditional publishers too, traditionally published too, they want their book to sell as well. So, so getting, a celebrity or whatever to, although sometimes it doesn't even matter, because like, sometimes you get people with like huge reach, and if their audience thinks they're just trying to sell them something, they're going to ignore it,
Yeah.
So it's got to come from the heart. Like, they genuinely have to like have like maybe discovered you on their own, or like they genuinely just really freaking love your book and they're being honest with their audience. Like, I just found this book and oh my God, I loved it. Instead of, you can always kind of tell the difference.
Yeah.
Like when someone's given something.
What was it, like 3-4 years ago, when YouTubers just started getting book deals, and people, like, was it Zoella? It was someone who it came out that she had a ghostwriter, but she'd like kind of tried to play it off as if she wrote the whole thing, and that was a mess for those reasons that you talked about. And so, I mean, obviously that's why I know within the booktube and authortube world, authortube less so, since I think we've all kind of set up front like this is what we're about, but I know booktube, people have been starting to have to like show that they're writing along the way in order to not be crucified by people who think it's not fair that they're using their reach in order to sell for like a money grab. So
yeah.
Well, and on the flip side of that, getting into territory that
sorry, but I have to be right
I
back.
don't like to get into as Becca runs away. I'm sorry. It's like, you have to be careful with people who have a lot of reach, because people who have a lot of reach have a lot of fans. And if they, for some reason, decide that you have have like not done something to their liking, or if they think that your book maybe is encroaching upon something that they want to do in the future, it can happen that they will like basically turn all of their fans against you, and they can do like dirty campaign like tactics. They can, you know, tell their followers not to follow you, and they're not going to do it publicly. They're going to do it somewhere that you have no proof that they did that, and you'll have people, I mean, there's some really dirty people on the internet, and they will do whatever they can to get themselves a leg up. So if they feel like they want to kind of get rid of you, they will find a way to get rid of you.
I'm always afraid of that, like, because it's like if you start expressing your opinions, like, you know, like political or just opinion on something, and then it's like you just never know who will turn on you and could do that, could literally destroy you if they have a big enough social media following.
I mean, we've seen a whole bunch of that on like a broader scale with, I know people are mad about cancel culture recently and kind of talking about the pros and cons of calling people out about stuff. So, I mean, that plays right into the same thing. When you have a lot of reach and like the consequences of using that reach.
I know.
It can be a very touchy subject. Someone asked, is creating an AuthorTube channel a practical way to market your book and to grow an audience? I feel like you have to do it for other reasons. Like, it can be a practical way, but you're not going to get, if you're just doing it to market, you are going to have not as many viewers, because they're going to realize that it's not authentic. You have to do it because you enjoy it, and you have to stay consistent, and you have to listen to me tell you how to have followers when I have like 380. It's fine. So, but like, I know from my personal experience, like, I have stopped following AuthorTubers because I have seen some of the dirty tactics that they play, or because I have just realized that they only post videos to kind of make people want to buy their book, not because they actually, like, they don't have any content that's actually helpful to me in any way. They can be nasty, or they just don't have like a personality that I mesh with. And the same can be said for booktubers. Like, there are really popular booktubers that I used to love that I no longer follow, because like, I'll see them hype up this book that was like a paid promotion for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then like 6 months later you see them unhaul it and they're like, oh, I never read this, it just didn't seem like my book, and they unhaul it. And I'm like, really? Because I bought that book because you specifically put it in like 6 videos talking about how amazing of a concept it was, and even kind of acted like they had read it already. And then 6 months later you're unhauling it, saying that you didn't read it and that it wasn't what you wanted. So I have a long memory on things like that. So I think that if you're doing this, if you're sitting in front of the camera for the wrong reasons, your audience will figure it out. The audience that you want, the audience that is going to be people that actually genuinely care and that are there to like help you through your process or help you enjoy your process, those people are going to know. So don't be fake. Don't do things that you wouldn't want someone else to do to you. And if you want to start an AuthorTube channel, do it. And you can do it authentically without making a big old hot mess out of it.
Yeah. And the community is amazing. Like, I met Jessica and BECCA and like several other people that I consider like friends at this point from doing these kind of videos. But I will say, I mean, I'll add on that if you're doing it just to have a following who are going to eventually, hopefully, maybe buy your books, like maybe all of us think that, but you don't, day in and day out, it's a lot of work to make videos sometimes. Like that can't be the reason you're doing it. Like, I don't know how many hours I spend on like a filming or editing something, even just like the vlogs that I do in one day while I'm writing. Like, that takes time to make later on, you know? So I think if that's the only reason you want to do it is to have people buy your books, like there would be much better ways to spend your time and get that same result. So it's got to be something else.
I agree, because like for me personally, my sales have gone down since I started AuthorTube, but I'm not stopping it, because it's like I still like the reason why I like doing AuthorTube is because of the community, like you said. And it's just like I like connecting with other writers. I like talking about, like, I like having an outlet of where I can, like, you know, just rant about how terrible things are going or how wonderful things are going or whatever. You know what I mean? It's definitely not helping my sales at all. Like and honestly, I do feel like that is because it is an awkward situation when you have connected with people. Because even though they may want to read your book just because like they like you or they feel like they connect with you, there is a certain hesitancy because, you know, if you hate the book or if you don't like the book, then it's awkward. And it's like, you know, I get worried about that because I started reading some AuthorTuber books and some of them I freaking loved and I was so excited and I was just like, yes. And then some of them I didn't. And I was just like, oh crap. Like,
I DNF'd one this month.
Oh,
I feel so horrible because it's not someone that I'm friends with. Like, it's not you, because I'm reading your book right now. So like, I didn't DNF your book, but like, even if I did, I would tell you, and I just would not post a review. I would be like, I love you, but I DNF'd your book, and I'm running away. But like, it's someone that I have watched their videos. Like, they were one of the very first AuthorTubers that I found on AuthorTube. I watch their videos a lot. I watch their live shows a lot, their live write-ins. Like, they've been to some of my live write-ins. I've had their book for like a year on my shelf. I DNF'd it, and I feel horrible about it.
oh, I know.
But I can't subject myself to that kind of torture.
I know.
And then it's like, and then it makes me question, like, they have so many 5-star reviews. And so it's like, is it me? Like, is it just me? Like, am I the only one that really
because this is the
didn't
thing.
like it?
I feel like, and this is where it gets tricky, because I feel like because we create this community and this, you know, of things, that sometimes I feel like when I know it's just, and I obviously never going to name names, but like I know when it's like a book for me that's just not for me, and it's really hard for me to get through, but it might be great for somebody else. But some things to me in a book are just like, if a book goes nowhere, like if it just the more I read, the more nowhere it gets.
Yeah.
And it's just like there's no plot. I'm not connected to any of the characters. I don't think, and so sometimes when those authors have a lot of 5-star reviews, it does make me wonder if like either it's people who really want to be, you know, noticed, you know, from their AuthorTube channel, or like maybe they genuinely did like it. I mean, it's hard for me, you know, to get in that mind space, because it's like, you know, but then again, you know, there are movies that you know, like people freaking go on and on about it, considered the best movies of all time, and I cannot get through them. So it really is subjective. It's hard to imagine why anyone would like certain things or whatever, but it's like, you know, some people are like, this is my cup of tea. I freaking love this. I wish all books were like this, you know? And so there are people out there that feel that way. It's hard for me because it's like, I'm stubborn, and like, I feel like, you know, I don't know. I read a lot of books, so I feel like,
you feel like you know what's, for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in terms of just, and maybe that is me just liking more classic storytelling. Like, I like to have strong characters when I'm reading. I like to have strong characters, strong story, strong plot. I like the action to be moving steadily so that there's no kind of like giant lulls for no reason, you know, and that's what I enjoy. And so it's like, and again, maybe that's just because I, you know, so many years in the movie and TV industry, it really is just about like moving from scene to scene to get through the, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to like not like somebody's book that I like.
I realized that I didn't like his book, but it's been a few years like since it came out, and I know that like I've seen him grow and like his process on his YouTube channel. So if a second book is ever released, if he, you know, writes another book, I would totally read it. Like I would totally give it anher shot because I feel like,
yeah.
well, and like you think not even just that, like I read, last month I read Slayer by Kirsten White. And I loved it. Like 5-star, super, absolutely loved it.
Oh, I saw you tweet about this.
This month, I tried to read And I Darken, and I DNF'd it. Like, I could not sit through it anymore. Like, it was just like, I wanted to curl up in a ball and die. So, like, I know if I feel that way about an author that is published, like one of their books was like so amazing, I absolutely loved it, and the other I could not finish. When it's about a topic that I have researched and like did studies on in college and I can't sit through it, then I know that it's like some things just don't work for you, and sometimes it's not the writing style and it's not the characters, sometimes it's just the vibe of the book doesn't work for you. So not saying that I'll never read any of his works again, just that book in particular was not for me. So,
yeah. Well, that's one that I find interesting is that, so there's a couple author tubers that I really love their content, but their books are something I already know, that it's just not, I don't read these kind of books.
Right.
I will never, or I have read these kind of books and routinely just don't like the kind of books. And at that point, I feel like I can't, it would be like not fair to me, to the author, to the book, for me to read it and try and do something when I already know it's just not my thing. So I've been trying to think of ways, how can I support people whose books I may or may not eventually read, just generally, how can I support other author tubers without having to read each and every book and not feel like I'm kind of purposely cherry picking stuff too. I've been kind of toiling that question over in my mind. So
same. Like I want
a channel.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really because you think about like there are authors that write so vastly different types of stories, like Kate, for instance, and Victoria / V.E. Schwab, like, you know, writes completely different stories. Myra Grant is the same as I think it's Shannon McGuire, like same author, but one's like YA type stories and one is like dark horror stories. So like she writes under 2 separate names. So just because you didn't like that one book idea or that type of idea that author tuber has come up with doesn't mean you won't like something that they do in the future. So you continue to watch their channel, which gets them views, which gets, you know, and if you are sharing their channel, then you're getting them more followers, which then gets them into a realm where they can possibly one day have ads where they are going to get revenue that way. There are so many ways that you can promote and help an author tuber without actually having to buy their book, especially if you're somebody who doesn't have the money to buy a book. Not just that you don't really like where it's going, but also if, because I mean there are a lot of younger people. I mean, we have people in our chat sometimes that are like 13, 14, like they're not out buying books, but they can spend time watching channels and supporting. So
yeah, for sure. I know it's rough because I just want to be supportive of everybody, you know. And I usually at this point I just don't say if I'm reading their book, and then if I really love it, I'll give it a 5-star review. That's the other thing. It's like even if I thought the book was like you know, a 4-star or whatever, when I'm supporting other authors and I really genuinely enjoy a book, I'm definitely, especially with author tubers and things like that, I'm definitely not going to be, I don't know. Yeah, like it's like if like let's say a friend is reviewing your book and they really like it. If they don't like it, you know, it's like just don't review it. But and just do me this solid and just don't review it.
Right, I'm not going to review it because I didn't like it. So
yeah, but if they like the book, you know, if they really like the book, but they would maybe their standard of star ratings is like if they really like a book, they give it 3 stars or they give it 4 stars, you know, and the only time they ever give out 5 stars is when it's like, you know, a classic, you know, like a Count of Monte Cristo or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that's the only time they shell out 5-star reviews. So it's like, but for me, it's all like if it is a friend or if it is a fellow author tuber and I think the book kicked butt and I really liked it, I will give it 5 stars no matter what. Like if I really like the book, it's just like, so I don't know. So I feel like that's how you can support people too. And if
I'm
you
not
just
that kind.
yeah, no, but you read the books, so I mean that makes sense because you do a lot of booktube stuff too.
Yeah.
So it really matters what your rating is because it's your brand. I mean, you're like, I am telling you, this is what I rate this book. So I get that. Like, if I was that kind of reader, I would definitely be more careful about what I give higher and lower scores to.
I rate off of a 6-point system. Like I have categories and each category is rated a star 1 through 5. And then I take the average and then I rate like the closest court. Like I have a system and sometimes the system doesn't work really well. Like sometimes like I think Jessie Elliott, like I really loved both of her books. I read them both as like an e-arc of both of them and then liked them enough that I not only purchased one for myself but purchased one for my best friend as like Christmas gifts. So like I have enjoyed them, and that's another way you can support people. If you know someone in your life that does like that kind of story and you don't, you can always buy it for a friend. Right. But I think I rated her books like 3.5, which a lot of people think is really bad. But to me, like 3.5 is like, I really liked it, but it had some issues. And I feel that way. Like, I feel like there were some things in her book that could have been better, but I really enjoy it. And I think if you like romance, you'll really like it. And like the writing's really good, but it's just like, you do the scale and sometimes it's just like, oh my gosh, like this for some reason this scale just didn't work out right. And sometimes it's like, I hated this book, but somehow it got a 3.75. Like, how did this even happen? Like, I don't, and I'll just like knock off I'm like, nope, I can't do it. I did it one day that I didn't really like. It got like a higher score than it should have. And I was like, no. And it's because the cover is like a 5-star, but the book was trash. Because I do rate based off of cover. So like it makes it so much better. And I'm like, no, I'm taking it down because the cover's not saving this one. So.
I'm doing all new covers, by the way. Don't judge.
You know what? I'm full disclosure. The cover of Riser really confused me because like it's really dark and it's just like got some purple in it. And I was like, what even is this? But I'm 30% in and I totally get it. Like it makes sense. Like it like after you read like the first 10 pages, you're like, oh, that cover makes sense now. But like, I would not pick up that book based off of the cover.
It's totally changing. Basically, I'm just I'm turning it into, because you know, I mean, when we did it, because I do love that cover, but it's only because of, like you said, I know what it means.
Yeah.
So it's like, and this was in 2010 when I released this book. So it was like sort of like the time of Twilight when everything was just very like just a simple picture. It wasn't like, you know, Cassandra Clare where you've got like, you know, hair flying and like, you know, and cityscapes and like this and that, you know, which are gorgeous and I love them. And so I'm steering more towards that. Like, that's why we're doing the photo shoot on Tuesday. It's for Atlas Rising, which is a combination of like Riser and Atlas. But while I have them, the 2 actors that we hired, I'm going to take pictures for Riser covers and for Atlas covers. Although I really want to keep the first Atlas cover. I do like that cover. And the other covers will be sort of more in that style. But yeah, I agree. It's like I like conceptual covers, me personally, but they don't necessarily sell the book. I mean, I guess I got lucky because I released it in 2010, so I didn't have a big problem then selling the book.
Right. It was what was on trend at the time.
Exactly. And like, I think in the first 2 years or the first 3 years, I had like 100,000 downloads. So it did pretty well, like in the beginning, but it's definitely like obviously like tapered down. And I think some of that has to do with cover because it has changed. Now it's an older book, of course. It's like 9 years old, but I still have the series out and I still want to market the series. I still want to sell the series. So I feel like I need to revamp the covers to sort of resell the series again, you know?
Well,
So,
and you brought up Cassie Clare, like the way that her covers are now, but originally her covers weren't like that. Like the first book of The Mortal Instruments, which was the first book that she sold, is completely different. Like, and it's gone through, I think, because I have issues and I own like copies of all of them, but it's fine. But I think that it's on like its fourth cover change, and not necessarily a cover change, but like the fourth edition of covers, because the world is still ongoing and people are still like finding it newly finding it.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for the group of people that are buying books now in that genre, in that age bracket, you want to sell to them. So to change your cover to make it something that they would want to pick up makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm doing it, because it's like, I mean, I'm literally coming out with the final book now. You know what I mean? Like it's 9 years later, but it's like the mashup between the two series. So I still need to sell those books. And I just don't think the covers that are currently the covers are going to do the job. So I need to, like you said, I need to update them to what, you know, the younger audience would be more interested in, and like eye candy, like of what they see, you know, kind of thing. So yeah. So anyway, so we'll see what happens. And luckily my husband has agreed to do all of them.
Well, you were talking about it the other day about how he did some of your covers and you like those ones a lot. And you said that he did the Dream Diaries.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that one. So I completely, like, I would, if I seen that in a bookstore, I would pick it up and be like, this looks cool. Like, what's this?
Yeah.
Whereas like Riser, I would be like, what is this?
I know.
And then you read it and you're like, oh. God.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that what now kind of conceptually I can kind of tell you what we're going to do is that it's going to have like, it will still have that as the backdrop.
Yes.
But then I will have Chelson, the main character, in the cover. And then there will also be, since it is like 300 years in the future, I will have a cityscape. But it's like of the modern Los Angeles with like the, you know, thousands of buildings that just kind of go for miles and miles kind of thing. So it's definitely going to have that sort of reminiscent cover of a lot of the covers that are out now. But you know, it'll have my husband's spin on it. And he's really good with making things sort of dark. But at the same time, I don't know. Maybe I'm biased, but you know, I mean, he's been doing this for years, and you know, and he's a visual effects guy. I mean, that's what he does for a living. So you know, I felt like
we talked about that the other day, and you said something. I can't remember. I don't even remember what show it was that you said that he did, and like I found him in there, and I was looking through all of his credits, and I was like, oh my god, like.
Shadow Hunters. He worked on Shadow Hunters. Yeah. Which was funny because when he did that, he had no idea. He just knew I was like a huge fan of the books. And so he was like, they told him like no pictures, no Instagram, no nothing. And he's like, all right, fine. So he just took a picture of a park when he was on set, and he was all like, and then he just literally tagged like, hey, on the set of Shadow Hunters, you know, blah, blah, blah. And like within 2 days, he went up like 3,000 followers, and like everybody was
because it's a crazy, like, just like, it's a crazy fandom to be in. And it's just like, holy moly. Buggy asked about, love to see videos on making covers and deciding what to do for your cover, because they're considering a cover soon and they have no idea what to do. I'm not good with covers, obviously, because I have never had to come up with one. Kate can't name things, so I doubt she's good at covers either.
You nailed it.
On AuthorTube, Mandy Lynn has been doing covers lately. She actually does like some pre-made covers that she sells. She's been doing videos on how to work with cover artists, how to come up with like cover concept ideas, and just a bunch of stuff on hers. And they look really good. Like she has some on her page of ones that she's made, and they're really good. So check out Mandy Lynn, and you'll get some information there, because we don't know what we're doing on that aspect.
Well, that's what I was going to say. And stay tuned to Becca's channel, because I know, Becca, you were planning on like vlogging part of it. But also Mandy Lynn does have some, I really liked, I can't remember which video it was, but when she talked about deciding to change her covers, is a lot like what, Becca, you're talking about. And I thought that was so useful to hear, and something that I thought was so cool about, like, when you're trying to decide the self-publishing or the traditional publishing route, it's something that like Becca can just continually update her covers or whatever she wants to fit the market at the time and continue to sell those books. But if you traditionally publish, you know, you often have a run, and unless you're a big hit, like that's it. You can't keep trying to market it. So
unless you're Victoria Schwab and you sell like a bajillion books, and then they reprint your novel that's out of print. Unless you're like that, and then I mean, they did. I won't say they did the same thing with Susan Dennard, but definitely once Truthwitch became more popular, they it was a different publishing house actually that did her original trilogy, and they redid the covers because it had been a while, and rebranded them, and then started selling those again because she was doing well in another category, so they redid those. But
yeah, and I know in the romance world,
I have like the original I Am Mercy by Mandy Lynn. So, and it's like, I didn't buy it based off of the cover. I bought it because I like Mandy Lynn. So this is not a cover that I would pick up in a store, but the new cover for it, I really like. So naturally I bought it before she changed the cover. So I'll probably have to buy the other one if I like the book. But I have a problem, and I especially if it's a book I really like I think I have 1.5 million copies of like all the Shadowhunters books and all of Susan's books and like Harry Potter, and I have problems. But I all know that because you've seen my shelves.
You can see the background right now. We can see your shelves.
Yep.
That's just 2 of the 3, not the ones that line the ceilings. So I mean, it's a hot mess back there.
I used to have that many books too. I just
or just an RV and you can't fit them in there anymore?
Well, it kind of started happening just in terms of every place we moved. It just kind of had to kind of get smaller and smaller. But yeah, I was like you. I had like 3 different versions of Lord of the Rings. Like, oh well, I have to get the red leather bound version, and then I have to get like the like the old 70s version from the and I have to get like the So I still have like, and those books I still have, like the ones that I truly like. I have like very like books that are really valuable too, because they're like first editions and like things like that, and so those I would never get rid of. I mean, they have more value to me than monetary value, but some of them, like my Never Ending Story book, is like a lot of money, which is like but it was just because it was one of those things where they only did like a release of it in America in the early 80s of like 10,000 copies or something like that, and so there's only 10,000 that exist in the whole world, so that's why it's worth more, kind of thing. So
I want you to be aware that if you're not looking at the chat, like everyone is talking about your sweater, and how much they love it.
I'm looking at the chat. I never look, and I need to do that.
And it's like old. People are sad because you made it and they can't have one, and I know that feeling in my soul. So stop making awesome clothes. Oh my god.
No, I actually like I know I've told you this story, but it's like the reason why because hello, huge Mortal Instruments fan and the whole series, but I always thought because I've always like loved the idea of that they just have these total like tattoos like of just I mean the cool visual concept. So that's why I was like thinking if I made the fabric with the actual runes on them and then made it sort of just like an actual like shirt that it's almost like wearing the tattoos. Like I can pretend that I'm a shadow hunter when I wear the shirt. It's all like I got tattoos.
Don't come at me, I will kill you.
But yeah, but the cool thing is that you can make fabric. Like literally spoonflower.com, you can upload your own pictures and drawings and things like that and put it on fabric. So
yeah, but like unless you can sew, it doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah.
what was it? Was it your live with Kate the other day when you were wearing like the Wonder Woman?
Oh yeah, my
Overalls. I'm like, I completely blanked. I wanted to say jumper, and I'm like, no, that's not a jumper because someone's talking about your sweater, calling it a jumper because obviously that's, you know, another word for it. But I was like, what are those things called? Like, I am so jealous because like I could make fabric, but I can't form it into a clothing item. I can patch clothes, like I can hem things and I can mend things, but I can't just like I can't make a shirt.
Honestly,
yeah, or her amazing dragon bags in the back, and then the pillows,
pillows, dragon bags, the Bucky dress. Oh my god.
Sewing isn't. I bet you, like, if you took a couple sewing classes, you'd be amazed at like something like this shirt is really like. I mean, this shirt in particular would be in a beginner's class because it's literally 3 pieces. Or, I mean, front and back, so 4 pieces, counting the 2 sleeves. But when you're cutting it out, you know, it's like the 1 sleeve pattern, you cut out 2 sleeves, and then front, back. And so it's like if you were in a class, you know what I mean? Like, it would be one of the first things they would show you how to do if you were learning how to make clothes. It would be like, okay, let's do something simple that doesn't have a lot of, you know, because I'm telling you, it ended up being easier than I thought it was going to be, the overalls. But it had like, okay, to give you an average, like something like this on a pattern has about, I think, 8 steps. Like when you're following a pattern, they have instructions on there. And it's literally, I think, maybe not even that much. It might be like 7 steps. So that's why this would be like, you cut it out, you do the steps, boom, you're done. The overalls had 98 steps.
Oh my god.
That is so astronomical for even a pattern. I was like, I thought overalls were supposed to be easy. It's $20 on Amazon. These things should be easy.
Oh my god.
And it ended up being easy. It just was like each step was like iron the pocket, you know, like, so it wasn't like difficult. It was just a lot of steps kind of. So it wasn't like anything too hard. Like I thought, I was like, this is gonna be awful. I don't know if I want to make overalls.
I mean, I can crochet, but like I have to have a pattern. Like I'm not one of those people that can just like see something and be like, I'm gonna crochet that. Like I need a pattern to follow. But like I've made elephants, like stuffed elephants and unicorns and stuff for my nieces. Like most of them have gotten like a baby blanket. But I have nieces that like one of my nieces is like the most ridiculous human. She's like me. We call her name's Lily. We call her the Lily Monster. Because she's just like, she's such a boy and like she loves Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I made her like this hat that has like their eyes and like the headband and stuff on it, like the big pom-poms. And it is so like she wore it so much. It is so raggedy. And like she still wears it. Like it's been like 3 or 4 years, and like every time I'm at their house, it's like you just like see it hanging on the shelf, and you're like, oh my god, that kid still wears that thing. How is she even getting it out of the house? Like I don't understand. But you know,
yes, I can't crochet or knit. That's my one weakness, my kryptonite.
Well, that's a lot of people in the chat, Becca, are saying they want some how-to videos from you. And I know you've made videos. I think you still have them on your writing channel, right? Don't you have videos of stuff you made? Maybe not how-tos, but...
I mean, I might have stuff that I made, but I did have a sewing channel for a while, but it was too much to have 2 channels. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And especially since
2 channels, because your channel is your name, so anything that you do can go on your channel.
Yeah, but it's weird. It's like I feel like people are weird about that.
You know, I have people that I follow that do like different lifestyle stuff as well as whether it's bookish content or whatever. And like if it's something I'm not into, I just don't watch that one. and like move on.
That's always been my philosophy too. So I've never understood the, like, you can only be this one thing, but I do know that, like, I guess maybe the algorithm.
Yeah, the algorithm hates it.
Penalize you for something, or like your viewers. I understand why people talk about it.
Yeah.
But because
the algorithm is a pain in the butt.
It is.
Yeah.
Because the problem I had with when I was posting sewing videos was that sewers would find my channel, and I don't have as many, and they're kind of like, I thought this was a sewing channel. This is all about writing. Like, you know, and so, you know, and I guess sort of vice versa maybe, but I feel like everyone I feel like more so with the writing community, I'm more connected because I talk to, you know, I feel like I talk to everybody and I can like this, so they get it. Like they'd probably be cool with me doing a sewing thing. It's actually just the people you bring in that are specifically there for sewing, and they're just not, they're not going to get that kind of content that they want, because I just don't have, I'm probably not going to do that many videos, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
But if you were making, this is my thing though, like if you were making the shirt that you're wearing right now, or like when you make your overalls for, you were talking about making them for, was it Captain Marvel that you said you wanted to make some overalls for? Like if you made something like that, that is kind of bookish related, because a comic book is still a book, like that would be something that you could put on your channel that would still be like book related in a way. So I don't know if it would like kill the algorithm or not, because like technically it's still book related.
Well, you know, I wasn't going to say anything, but tomorrow I'm actually getting my first tattoo, and it is a book related tattoo.
I'm so excited.
I was gonna vlog it, you know,
Please
because
do.
I mean, I always wanted to have a tattoo, but I have keloids, and so I was always told I was never able to get a tattoo. But recently, you know, I've been reading a lot about like, because mainly people that keloid are African American or Asian people, and then there's actually techniques, because a lot of African American people keloid, and so now there's actually tattooing techniques, a gentler kind of way to do it, so that you don't keloid, or at least reduce the chances of keloiding. So I found an artist that it's so funny though, because I'm so white, people are always like the tattoo artist came in, I had talked to her about keloids, and she was like, I walked in, she's like, oh, you don't have to worry about it. No, you're not going to keloid. And then I'm all like showing her like all my keloids. She's like, holy crap. She's all like, she's like, you're like the, because the thing is that my great grandmother was Black. So it's like, that's where we get the keloids, you know? So it's like, but obviously when people look at me, they don't see any, you know.
I get that.
You know, so it's just like, you know, how are they supposed to know that my great-great-grandmother was Black? You know what I mean? So I think they don't think about it as like something that like, oh, you probably just scar, you don't really keloid, you know, and you just think it's a keloid. I'm all like, nope.
I'm telling you.
Well, it's like, I get that, because like you are super pale, I'm super pale, and like I have a great-great-grandparent that was Black and a great-great-grandparent that was Asian. So like, how am I so pale? I don't understand.
And then you have to explain, because it's just like, yeah, because of course, it's like, why couldn't I get the perfect skin, you know? But I get the keloids.
You always get the bad things. And, you know, I did like an ancestry test, and that's how I found out. And like learning that we're Asian made so much more sense. Like when you look at faces and stuff, like a lot of people in my family have hooded eyes. It just like the way our face shapes are, like it made so much more, like you look at them and you're like, oh, I see it now. I get it. Some of my cousins, we knew that there was some Black ancestry because some of my cousins have like the hair texture. So like we knew that was there. Like I didn't get that. But some of my cousins did. Like, so there are some things that, you know, continue down. So like we knew that was somewhere, but you know, not for sure, but we were pretty sure that it was there. But the Asian thing just like threw me for a complete loop. Like I didn't even think about it until I seen it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense.
Yeah, I love that. I did that ancestry thing too. So it was just like, it was a kind of a cool thing. Like, yeah, because of your history, your family history, and you talk about it, but it's like when you actually see it, like in a science, like, look,
percentages down.
Where they lived. This is where they came from. This is how long ago that it was. And we have a lot of because this skin tone, we're mostly British and Irish. I bet you couldn't guess.
Same here. I'm like 52% Irish. I'm all like, really? Like, I don't even know any Irish relatives. So it's like, okay.
I have a very high percentage of Scandinavian, which is like Norse, and like the percentage is so high that they said that no one really in the United States, like outside of Minnesota, has that high. Like Minnesota has that high, but just like randomly, there's me who has like a really high percentage of Scandinavian. And I'm like, well, now I know why I'm so white. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I know why I have blonde hair and blue eyes, and it all makes sense now.
Yeah, that's so funny. All right,
well, I'm excited for your bookish tattoo vlog.
Yeah,
that's exciting because I'm gonna get a tattoo at some point too. And then I know, Jessica, you've made a video about your bookish tattoos. So
I only have one, but I'm like, which side is it on? Oh, it's on this side. But yeah, I do have a bookish tattoo. And I plan to get more, but that's just, what I have for now.
Well, for me, I was going to say for me, because of the keloids and we don't know if I'm going to keloid, we have to start small. So, so it's going to be like, I'm hoping it's going to be a whole entire top arm thing eventually if I don't keloid. But there is one component of it that I can do on its own that if it ends up being just like, because the thing about keloids is that, especially on tattooed keloids, is that what's nice about it is because the punctures are so tiny that the only thing that keloids is the ink. So all that would really happen would be that it would be a slightly raised tattoo, like a tattoo with texture. So it's not gonna like bleed into, and turn into something like disfigured or whatever.
Fine still. Yeah.
So it'll still look like what it's supposed to be. It'll just be slightly raised. But
They say that once you get one tattoo, you get addicted and you have to have like 90 million. But I got mine like in 2000 and 11. I think Meredith died in 2010, so I think mine was 2011 because I think I got it like right around. It was either right around the anniversary of her death or her first birthday after she died. So it was like a year. So like I've had mine for 8 years and that's the only one I got. And it wasn't a horrible experience or anything. It's just they're expensive because I'm not the person that like goes and like, you can get a back alley tattoo if you want. And that's your life decision. You can do what you want, but that's not my life decision. And I just, would like rather spend my money on books.
Yeah. Well, now I can't spend them on books anymore because I live in an RV. So I don't spend my tattoos.
And you can always take the tattoos with you. So,
well, now I'm spending all of my money on stickers because I have an obsession with my happy planner, and so like I haven't been buying books because I'm like I have 240 that I need to read, so no books. But now I'm buying like sticker books, and I have way more sticker books than any one girl should have. Trust me. Way more.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think kind of winding down the chat. If anyone still has questions, let us know, or maybe topics for another discussion. We'll probably have Becca on again at some point. So
if anyone has anything that actually has to pertain to the topic of discussion that we stopped talking about 2 hours ago.
No, I was going to say, you know what? We did really good. For the first hour, we were totally on topic. So I consider that a win.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah Parker Ford, that sounds awesome. She says, I don't have a tattoo specific for a book, but I have an ancient Nord binding rune that represents the power of words to overcome depression.
Oh,
that's awesome. That's really awesome. I have always been like a really musically inclined person, and music has always been like my go-to. And I feel like if you didn't have to be so attractive to be like good at singing, like to be popular and to move on, like I would have chosen a career in singing rather than writing.
Oh my God, you should totally do singing. You are so pretty. What the heck?
It's just trust me, okay? Just trust me. But
no, I do not trust you.
It's a oh my gosh, the name has left me who the quote is by, but it's basically where words fail, music speaks. Is it Andrew Lloyd Webber? I think maybe. I can't remember, but like that was a tattoo that I always wanted to get like when I was younger because I was more music than words when I was younger. And so now it's like kind of ironic because like I gave up on music and I do writing instead, which was probably a good decision because I used to write poems and songs and they were really bad. That's my writing experiment this month is trying to get back into poetry. So I haven't filmed it yet. I'm gonna do it this weekend, so we're gonna see how that goes. But yeah, I definitely think that like having those two things together would be like a really cool tattoo idea. But
yeah, I want a one-off video of you just singing.
So I know.
That's my
probably never going to happen, but you know.
Put it on unlisted and then just share it with us.
I think, you know, there's a video somewhere. Oh, I sang some Britney Spears once in a book hall. And because I sang Oops, I Did It Again. Like, because I called like 50 books and just did like a little bit of like impromptu like Britney Spears. And sometimes I do that in my videos, but like a legit singing video will probably never happen.
Oh, dang it.
Maybe one day. Maybe it's like
if I had singing talent. I have none, but if I did, I think that's great.
I will make a deal with both of you right now. Should ever my channel hit 10,000 followers, I will make you a full singing video of the song of your choice.
Oh my God, that'd be awesome.
We'll hold you to it.
Never going to happen.
Definitely hold you to it.
Somebody write it down. Oh wait, we don't have to because we have it in video.
Yes, it's actually recorded.
27 years from now, when my ticker ticks up to 10,000, I will sing the song of your choice.
You know, it's so funny you talk about that because it is really about algorithms too. Because like Stefan and I are starting an RV channel, and so I'm curious to see just in terms of topics, you know, at like how well or not well that does, because I watch a lot of RV obviously channels and like van life channels and stuff like that because, you know, it's a lifestyle obviously that we're now kind of living. So it's fun to watch other people, you know, kind of go through it. So I'm curious as to see what the difference would be of like, you know, me. I mean, I've been doing the AuthorTube thing for over a year, maybe 2 years or whatever. And yeah, I'm at like 400 or something like that subscribers. Whereas like my husband who barely posts, like he literally posts like a video a year. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm up to like, I mean, it's not a lot, but he's up to like, I mean, it's a lot for him because he's like at 5,000. But like other, you know, if he had done like a video a week or something, he'd probably be like, you know, have 10 times more than that, like just because of the topic and him.
That Shadowhunters tweet.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the shows he does. But what's interesting is that most people on YouTube don't really even know that about him. You know, it's like because he doesn't really talk about it like in his channel that much in terms of like what he does. He just talks about like tech. You know, so they're really just kind of going on for his reviews of tech and stuff like that. So it's like I feel like if people, you know, knew that he was using it for stuff like that they actually watch, you know what I mean, that
it'd be way more invested. Yeah
So it'll be interesting to see, but we're going to be starting our RV channel like next week, I guess, because we're leaving.
Yes, I'm so excited. I love RVG. I don't know that I have any that I follow, so this is gonna be the interesting. But I Google it all the time, and when I was on my road trip, I watched a whole bunch of them because I was living.
Right. That's the thing. It's like when you're
like, let me watch all of them.
yeah, it's like when you're actually living it, you're like, oh, I want to watch other people doing this too.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be curious too. There's a cap on stuff, even like the biggest people, max out maybe at 100,000 or 150. I think a couple have, and then it's like a big gap kind of thing. So
exactly.
RV people got a whole bunch of watches and subscribers, so that's exciting.
They do. I mean, that ranges too. I feel like it does kind of, RV channels and van lifers do kind of max out around 100K as well.
Yeah.
Like between 100 and 200K seems to be like the peak. So yeah, I mean, YouTube's so crazy and interesting and fascinating, and
yeah.
I want to know what people put in their tags. Like,
oh, no.
Because you can tag your video, and like, I want to know what the popular people put in their tags. Like, what are they putting in there that I'm not putting in mine that's helping people find their stuff?
Girl, I will share my screen with you and I'll show you like the back end of what my stuff is. If you want to see it.
Literally, yeah. I have like BookTube, AuthorTube, books, writing. I don't know. There's like some stuff in there. There's like I have it preset to like always put in like 5 or 6 or something. I don't know, whatever's in there. But like, what are these people putting in there? Like, what's the secret? How do you make people find you?
I would definitely be interested in send that to me.
I will show y'all. Like, we can all go over. I feel like I wish there was more information just everywhere. On just in general about how to do stuff and like what it is.
Anything else that you do, like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anything like that where you tag something, it shows up. In YouTube, no, you can't see what people tag things as. So like,
yeah, that's true.
I'm just supposed to guess. I'm supposed to guess. Like when you type in something on, I can't remember if Twitter does it or not because I don't pay attention, but like I know on Instagram, like if you type in a tag, it tells you like how often it's been used in like the past day. So like if you're typing it in one way, you're like, oh, that's only got like 100, and you type it in a different way and it's like, oh, that's got 2,000 today. You're like, okay, well, that's the one I'm using. YouTube doesn't do that. How am I supposed to know? How am I supposed to know how to format my channel so people can find it?
Yeah, I think if you go to like in your web browser, if you go to like tools and then web developer, there's like a page you can click on that will tell you their tags.
I love you right now.
I think it's inspector or something. I'm not sure. It's one of them where it's like you literally go to tools, web developer, and then it's one of those pages. I'm just not sure which. And then it'll literally give you a list of everything. But then if you scroll down, you'll be able to see what tags they use. So, but you have to do it within each individual video. It's not like they have and sometimes people use different ones every video to get like different with that. But
like, I'm not very tech smart, obviously, which makes this next part very funny. Someone asked what we use to edit our videos with, and I use Premiere Pro. I don't know how half of it works.
But fancy.
Fancy, yeah, that's what I use too. It's because I have the whole like Adobe suite, so I use that for everything.
Yeah,
I have the entire Adobe suite. Like I bought it when it was on sale on Black Friday. The only thing I've used is Premiere Pro, and I have no idea how anything else works. I don't know how to, like, I just figured out like the lower thirds thing. Like I just figured that out like a week ago. Like I know what that is now. I have no idea how to do anything. But my thing is that like I've been using I've used Shotcut. I used to use Windows Media Maker, which was like the easiest thing to use ever, but it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So like it broke my soul. And I've used so many different programs, and it just like it would take me 3 hours to edit like a 5-minute video because it was just like it wasn't intuitive at all. It was so hard to figure out, and just I could not figure out what I was doing. So I have watched I've watched probably a couple of hours worth of how-to on Premiere Pro to figure out like the basics, and like I can edit a 20-minute video in 40 minutes, and
Right.
like I can get it, but I can't do like any of the special effects stuff yet. Like I'm still learning how to do all that. But
Okay.
I'm not very tech savvy, but just give me the whole entire Adobe suite. It's fine.
Hey, eventually.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time like trying to figure out like how to make my videos better, how to edit better, just like all of that stuff, because I want to make my content better for the, the 300, and I think I'm up to 390. Don't let me lie to you. I think that I'm up to 390. I could be like a huge liar. I'm looking because it's important to know the exact. Oh my God, guys, I've gotten like so many followers during this live that I'm actually at 400 right now. Like,
Woo!
400. Woo! Okay, so anyway, I hit the 400 mark. I have 400 followers. So like I want people to enjoy what they're watching. Because I like the, like counters on screen and like things that pop. Like I love that on other people's videos. So I'm trying to learn, but like I've been here for 2 years. I should have learned some of this stuff by now. Like totally should have learned some of this by now.
There's so many things I know I can do in InDesign too that I'm all like, I've published 13 books and I'm all like, you could probably do this. And it's like, yeah. But I make it look pretty the way it is, the way I know how to do it. And all right, But yeah, there's a ton of things that like programs do that I just don't fully like. That's why I always consider myself a jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I think Kate tried to wrap this up a half hour ago, and we just keep stuff.
You know what? This is what I have said. We have no idea how long we'll talk for. We're just glad that y'all joined us. So.
Because we're crazy, and that's how we roll.
I need to do that more. I never read them, and then I forget, and then I'm like get all nervous.
I do. Do you know that you can pop it out? Do you know that there's a pop out option for the chat?
Oh, no. How do you do that?
If you just like hover over it and you get like your 3 little option dots there on the corner, you can hit pop out.
Oh.
And that's what I do. Like, I leave up our window of the Google Hangouts and I pop out the chat and leave it up so that I can
look at all the comments.
Yeah, because if I don't do that, like if I have to stare at like the actual like the YouTube channel, and because I get so confused because I'm like that's not who's talking right now. What is happening? And I get really lost. So
this is amazing.
Pop out your chat.
I promise to be better next time. Oh, I see people asking me questions. Oh, I'm such a jerk. I haven't done any of these.
Oh, we need to answer for you sometimes. I think you did.
And make sure that you change like at the top where it says live chat or top chat. Make sure you change it to live chat, or you will miss some people.
Oh, it is top chat. You're right.
It's also top chat. Look at that.
Yeah. You can set that when you do your video setup. You can, in like the advanced section, you can select so that it shows up live chat for everyone.
See, here's the thing. Jessica says she's not good at tech, but I guarantee you helped me so much on this like YouTube backside of stuff. So
well, okay, I'm good at some things, but it's only because like, do you realize that YouTube has a help channel for every single solitary thing on there? I have read so many of those because like I said, like I want to make my channel better. I want to do what's best. I want to put out good content. I want to know what I'm doing. So like the first couple of live shows like were just a hot mess, and like I have learned so much in like the 20 that I've done that it's like, oh, I know how to do this now. I need to make sure I do this. And like I hit the help button a lot. Like YouTube is one of the channels or one of the websites that has like the best help section of any website on the internet. I mean, because you can get into like subcategories of subcategories and just
Google
like
does a great job.
Yeah, Google does an amazing job of like helping you figure out what you're trying to do. I love it.
Yeah. Oh.
All right. Well, I think we might officially be calling it. We almost are at 2 hours. So thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Jessica and Becca's information down below. If you're not already subscribed to them, y'all should be. They are fantastic. And they put out great content.
I know the answer to this is probably no, but have you guys scheduled for your next live?
No.
Oh no.
But it will be on Becca's channel during Camp NaNoWriMo. So
And
oh my God.
we discussed doing one on your channel, I think, Kate, at the end of Nano season, in the end of the month maybe as well. Because I do monthlies anyway, which my monthly is this Sunday at 11 a.m. EST. Come join me. I'll be writing in the morning.
Yes.
And but we discussed doing one towards the end of the month, and my dog is whining outside the door now because she's like, I can hear you when they're talking. Please come be my friend. But anyway, and yes, Brittany, Camp Nano is in April. There's one in April, there's one in July, and then regular Nano is in November.
yes. All right. Well, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much.
Bye.
Did it stop? Did it stop?